On Saturday, the Walk Free NGO is going to publish the latest findings of its research into female slavery. Let's speak to Walk Free's founding director, Grace Forrest. Grace, welcome to the program. What exactly...
Thank you for having me.
What classifies slavery these days?
Slavery is the systematic removal of a person's freedom, where one person is exploited by another for personal or financial gain. It puts someone in a situation where they have little to no control over decisions relating to their body and their future. It includes forced labour, forced marriage, human trafficking, organ trafficking, and state-imposed forced labour.
In 2018, 122 countries had criminalised human trafficking. Only 38 had criminalised forced marriage. The United Nations is warning that the coronavirus pandemic is going to force tens of millions of girls into a child marriage. So what are countries doing about it? If they've signed the paperwork and say they're against it, why is it still happening so much?
We're not exactly sure, but we hope that this report sets out a roadmap on how exactly they can change these odds stacked against women and girls around the world. Our report has found that 1 in every 130 women and girls globally is living in modern slavery. That's more than any other time in human history. And it shows us that there are more women and girls living in modern slavery than there are people living in Australia. As you alluded to, COVID-19 is compounding this vulnerability tenfold. So what I can guarantee you is that the 1 in every 130 number is without a doubt conservative. The reality is that 136 countries are still yet to criminalise forced and child marriage. This is completely unacceptable. And without these legal frameworks of basic protection, we have seen that in a first instance where crisis hits and a girl is taken out of school, the then next reaction is to marry her off. We are under no illusion that just legal roadblocks being removed alone will change these odds, but we know that without their enforcement, we will have no chance of changing this situation for millions of girls around the world. The other legal roadblock we're looking at, which has been deeply uncovered in the COVID-19 crisis, is the crisis of global supply chains. Women and girls exploited in their hundreds of thousands in the supply chains of goods that we buy and use every single day: clothing, coffee, technology. And this goes hand in hand with other vulnerability in our global economy, like the kafala system, which normalizes the abuse of migrant workers and puts the power solely in the employer's hand, removing the freedom of choice from the employee.
Grace, how much is this is it an issue that needs to be addressed internationally with collective action, but also how much is it a domestic issue? And here we reach a slightly contentious issue here, because I'm just wondering how much it has to do with the culture of a certain country, because we know in certain countries, girls and women and their contribution to society is devalued when compared to a man's. It might be that people regard girls as a way of being given to somebody in marriage to make money in return, or that a girl's economic value may not be equivalent to that of a man's.
The report is called Stacked Odds because it looks at the vulnerability that women and girls face in many parts of the world from conception throughout their life. As you alluded to, harmful cultural norms that view women and girls as less than men and boys is one of the key drivers of slavery for women and girls around the world. But this is absolutely an international problem. Our report has found that slavery and highly exploitative practices of women and girls exist in every country in the world. And that's why we're calling for the legal roadblocks that stop women and girls from fully and freely participating from being removed, such as criminalising against forced and child marriage. And the countries where we see the highest prevalence, this needs to be a higher priority. But this is also a problem for multinationals. This is also a problem that we must take to the boardrooms and to the highest level of business, because normalised exploitation has become far too common in our economy. And what COVID-19 has showed us is the mass disruption of supply chains, that the most vulnerable people in supply chains, the people at the front, the people who truly live hand to mouth, they are the ones to first be hit by economic crisis, not the multinationals who have the economic protection to actually look after themselves. Those who are most vulnerable are most impacted, and this is completely unacceptable.
Grace, really appreciate you coming onto the program and effectively educating us on this issue. Grace Forrest, who is the founding director of the Walk Free NGO.